How's it going on? Welcome back to the channel. So on this video, we're going to be talking about when is the right time to invest in your current car versus moving on to a new vehicle or something else newer than what you currently have. So with that being said, how's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. So on this video, we're going to be talking about when is the right time to invest in your current car versus moving on to something newer or something new at that time, and what particular time, or some of the factors that may make you sway one way or another. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. All right, so the first thing is we're going to have to look at the overall repair cost of your current vehicle. So if you have, for example, a vehicle that needs some minor maintenance, then it may well be worth keeping that vehicle. And now if that same vehicle needs major repair and it's, let's say, 10 to 15 years old, and that current repair that it needs is worth more or equal to the value of the vehicle, it may not be worth it for you in your situation. And I will say that this situation is different for everybody, and obviously everyone is in a different situation. So different situations and different principles will apply to different people. But overall, in my opinion, if your car is, let's say, worth $5,000 and it needs a $6,000 or $7,000 repair bill, then at that point, it may not be worth investing to that vehicle, and may be worth moving on to something newer or new if makes sense. Now, if your vehicle only has a couple $100 worth of repairs every couple of months and it's in relatively good shape, then at that point, it is cheaper to maintain that vehicle than get into something newer that somewhere along the line, probably within a year or two, is going to start needing some maintenance. So average miles driven per year is 12 to 15,000. So you should be changing your oil every 3,000 to 5,000 miles. That doesn't matter if the car is old or new. Now, some of these newer cars do have some maintenance plans, but those expire quickly. And at some point, you're going to have to pay for these oil changes regardless. And the newer cars typically take more expensive oil. So that's just something to consider. Obviously, at that 1 year mark, you're talking already alignment, probably a rotate or two in. So that's something that whether you have a car payment or not, you're going to have to get done, or you should be doing. A lot of people will neglect these cars, which is another issue all on its own. And particularly so if the vehicle is leased. So if you're buying a certified used car, chances are that car was leased and potentially neglected at some point, which brings up its own set of issues. So be very wary when buying a used vehicle, even if it's a certified pre-owned. And I'm going to have a dedicated video on this subject and what you should be looking for. So make sure you stay tuned for that in a future video that I'll have out probably in a couple of weeks or a couple of months. So again, if it makes sense to make the repair at that time, make that repair. Obviously, me being on the maintenance side of things, I'm going to say it's always smarter to keep what you have, as long as we have is relatively good and in good shape and has been relatively reliable to you. Now, if the car has been giving you repair bills of thousands of dollars every month, then obviously it may be time to move on for that car. Now, if you're only spending and doing routine maintenance every 3 to 4 months or so, and you're spending $100 to $200, maybe sometimes even less, if it just needs an oil change at that certain interval, then that car has treated you well, and there's no reason to upgrade from that, unless if you actually wanted that itself, and upgrade a newer vehicle, something with more features, something with more tech and stuff like that. So on to the next point. So we're going to talk about some of the expenses that comes with new cars. Obviously, if you're buying these vehicles, they are going to come at a premium, especially after the pandemic, we have seen prices skyrocket. So I have some numbers here, and these are straight from Experience State of Auto Finance. And this is Q2 numbers. So Q3 numbers should be out any day now, but I do not have information of that just of yet. So this is the average monthly car payment that people across America are paying. This doesn't mean exactly this is the number. This is an average of high and low combined to equal this number. So $734 for new vehicles. So that's $734 a month for a new vehicle. Used vehicles, $525, and leases $586. So again, if you go ahead and purchase, lease, buy a used new vehicle, then you're going to have that payment on top of whatever maintenance eventually it ends up needing. Now, if you're leasing, you're going to be doing, chances are, minimum maintenance, which is okay, but could be an issue for somebody down the line. A lot of these cars do get neglected once again, and a second owner usually pays a price at some point. So that's just something that you have to consider. You also have to consider the finance costs and everything. So obviously those numbers I gave you before are average numbers. Now, finance totally going to depend on mostly your credit score, and the finance rate will reflect that based on your credit score. So I'm not going to give those numbers because obviously they can change from place to place and person to person very drastically. So I will say that insurance is something you also have to keep in mind. So some of these cars have newer features which could bring down the cost of the price of the insurance a little bit, although the cars will, if you're financing, leasing, or in any sort of way, shape, or form, you're going to have full coverage. With your older vehicle, you may have just liability. So that's going to be an expense all on its own. And this is something that salesmen don't share with the customer when buying the vehicle. Obviously, you have to have insurance before you leave the facility. But they're just trying to get you to admit, or trying to convince you to say, what can you afford on a monthly basis? And that's probably the biggest mistake that people make, because once you admit that, or once you tell them the number, then that loan may have been for 5 years, but now that you gave them that number, they may try to stretch that to 6 years or 7 years even, because that's the number you could afford. So that's like the biggest no-no when purchasing a car. You want to know what's the total price of the car, and then divide that or add or multiply the monthly payments, and you'll get the actual number that you're paying for the vehicle as a whole. So the total price is a couple thousand more than the sticker price. Then that's okay. You got to pay for taxes. Now, if you're talking 10, 15 grand over, that is an issue. And talking about being money over. So a lot of cars and a lot of people are in negative equity because of the pandemic and the whole vehicle shortage. So I know you guys know that there was people paying for average Joe cars, sometimes 5, 10 to 15 grand over asking price, because they just wanted and needed a new car. So a lot of people out there are rolling around with negative equity. So what that means is you owe more on the vehicle than the vehicle is worth. So at some point in time, unless if you finish that lease or finance term or whatever it is, you're going to have to pay the difference if you roll that over into the new car. So on average, according to Cox Automotive, posted July 16th, 24% of vehicles in America have negative equity at this time. So we're talking negative equity on average of $6,458 that people are rolling around in these cars, that they owe $6 grand more than the vehicle is actually worth. So if you have something that you potentially bought 2-3 years ago, and that car's starting to give you trouble because you put a lot of miles on it, you have a lot of miles, so that's automatically going to bring the price of the vehicle down. Not only that, now you owe an additional whatever it is for that price difference. So you're going to be in big trouble, and you're going to have to roll that into that new car payment, whether it be new or used. So at that point, it would probably make more sense to keep your current car and just live with it, try to do the best you can, try to maintain as best as possible just to get yourself from out of this situation. It's going to take a couple of years. It's not going to be a year or two thing. So a lot of these cars are in big trouble because of just what happened a few years ago. And unfortunately, these people just wanted to get into a new car, and now they're realizing that they made a big mistake. And we're talking average cars here. Some of them may even be more than that, but on average, that is what's being reported. So obviously a big deal. Additionally, and we see this all the time, new cars are having a ton of issues. So you may want to hold on to your car. So, for example, if your car is older, but again, has been relatively good to you, there's no reason to jump into a new car, especially a new model year that most likely will have some growing pains, some issues along the line, some recalls as we're seeing. If you follow the channel, I've been super busy trying to keep you guys updated on recalls. So you don't want to be the first model year guinea pig or test dummy, whatever you want to look at it, and just kind of hold on to what you have and see how the car turns out. Shop around, dig around, do your research, and maybe it might time to be just hold off for a little bit longer. Try to band-aid your car up a little bit, keep it safe, but do the minimum that it needs to keep it safe and on the road, as long as possible. So that's gonna be it for this video, guys. Hopefully this does help make some people's decisions. Obviously, me on a maintenance side, I'm always gonna try to guide people into maintaining a vehicle, because I think long term is the best strategy, because buying a new car is probably the worst financial thing anybody could do. Even though I myself have 2 newer cars, doesn't mean it was a good financial decision. But life is short, and I wanted to treat myself and my wife to new vehicles, so we did that. But we're not going in every 3 years buying new cars either. So I think short rule of thumb that 10 to 12 to 15 years is a good lifespan of any vehicle, as long as, obviously it's not giving you a ton of issues. And if you maintain these cars properly, chances are they will give you, that respect, and they will treat you back just as good as you treated them. So I think that maintenance goes a long way. A lot of cars are neglected, then a consumer likes to blame the product. Not that the product is perfect by any means, but a lot of times it takes 2 to tango. So if you just kind of maintain a car as good as you possibly can, it's going to treat you well. So that being said, I'll catch you on the next one.